is WTF Bach?
I don't know, some days I just want to hear what WTF Bach has to say about actual Bach. Today you're going to hear a little Bach, today you're going to hear a little WTF Bach.
Back to the Bach, says I, Evan Shinners. Thanks for being here. We are into the third variation of the canonic variations on Von Himmel hoch, the late organ masterpiece from Mr. J.S.B. If you're just joining for this mini-series, I'd suggest you listen to the first episode. They're all quite short, each under 20 minutes per episode, and that will prepare your mind for this episode here. And speaking of the episode length, I mentioned this at the end of one episode, but I want to mention it again here at the beginning. I asked for feedback on your preferred episode length. Do you like these episodes short, under 20 minutes, or do you like the almost hour-long episodes? Most of you said, do whatever you want or just keep it the same. But a not insignificant percentage of listeners said, I like the short format. It's less daunting and it fits better with my hectic schedule. So in an attempt to gather all types of listeners, when I finish this mini-series on these variations, I'm going to make episodes in the long format as they've been, but every 20 minutes there will be a natural break. So that way, if you've only got 20 minutes, you won't feel like you're switching off the episode in the middle of an important point. And if you're in for the long haul episodes, you will not be disappointed. So business out of the way, let's talk variation 3. Oh, there's an immediate problem. Which variation is variation 3? Naturally, the one that follows number 2, right? I mentioned that Bach had these variations engraved on copper for publication, for a submission to this society that was sort of a bunch of intellectual composers gathered in Leipzig in 1747. And we refer to that engraving, that publication, we call it the Stichfassung. All right, but Bach, being Bach, never tiring of his work, made another version by hand. And this version we call simply the fair copy. So we've got the fair copy and the publication. We know from our study of the art of fugue that we have the same thing, an autograph copy done by hand and a publication done by engraving. And in that case, in the art of fugue, the engraving is the final version. The autograph was most likely sent to the engraver, who, with the help of Bach, made a few revisions. But here, it's not the case. In fact, I'm going to have to devote an entire episode just to the differences between the Stichfassung and the handwritten copy. But briefly, if you open up both versions side by side, you'll notice that not even the variations themselves appear in the same order. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in one version, and 1, 2, 5, 3, 4. Or more accurately, they go canon at the octave, canon at the fifth, and then one version goes canon at the seventh, augmented canon at the octave, and inverted canon at multiple intervals. I can't wait for that episode. That's the Stichfassung. That's the publication that has that order. But the fair copy has canon at the octave and canon at the fifth, like we've heard, but then the inverted canon at various intervals, then the canon at the seventh, and finally the augmented canon. Like I say, we're saving all those fascinating differences between those two versions for another day. And in any case, today is the canon at the seventh day, which in the Stichfassung appears as the third variation. So let's dive right into a canon at the seventh.
You can hear it now on the WTF Bach podcast. The podcast about all things Johann Sebastian Bach.
Okay, you've opened up the third variation in the Stichfassung. You've got the canon at the seventh, 3 staves. You'll notice that, for starters, the pedal line is now a lot more involved. Whereas the beginner organ student could play the first 2 variations, simply slowly singing out the cantus firmus in the feet. Here in the canon at the seventh, there's a lot more notes in the feet, and for the first time, the feet are actually part of the canon, for it is the pedals and the left hand that play the canon, and the right hand provides a decorative accompaniment. So let's start by hammering out some of this pedal line here and see what's going on there. That is indeed the first utterance by the pedals. I'm probably going to transpose that into the MIDI so we can just hear a little clearer without all that reverb. Here it is again in MIDI. And I like the shape because not only is it Von Himmel hoch komm ich daher, it's a sequence of that exact phrase. So we have, And again. One more time. So we've got 4 times. It's as if Bach is saying, yes, I'm painting the text from heaven high. I'm coming down, 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 and all the way down. And this shape here will be imitated at the interval of a seventh. So if I were to play the entirety of the canonic lines, now the pedals will be in your left speaker and the left hand in your right speaker, and it will be imitated at the interval of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in other words, this shape will be imitated like this. And we'll find some really cool imitation. Pedals in your left hand in your right. Right, so there's some very interesting things there. The first thing that I notice is the initial shape. Because of its shape of 3 descending notes and then ending with 3 ascending notes, when Bach puts them 4 notes apart, the result is that we have these sort of anti-symmetrical shapes, or these mirrors. So I don't know if you heard that, but coming together, coming apart, coming together, coming apart, coming together. And that's pretty nifty. I mean, Bach saw that if he put them a seventh apart, the interval of a seventh apart, they would form these very consonant mirrors. Very, very cool indeed. Okay, now, if you're basing your knowledge on the previous episodes where we discussed the other 2 variations, you'd think that the right hand is going to slowly sing out the chorale melody, just as the other non-canonic entity of the previous variations. But here we have something more ornate than just the right hand singing slowly. Von Himmel hoch. And it sounds like this. Marked cantabile, by the way, singing. You think, well, what is that? Okay, where is the chorale melody? That's purely decorative. Where's the melody itself? In fact, it does appear in that very next bar, also in the right hand. Just slowly, up high, like you thought it would. But what we have in a way is the right hand playing its own chorale prelude itself. So we've got this nice flowing brook of 16th notes carrying us along. And then in the distance, these islands. Right, so that was the first head of the theme, played very slowly, all while this delicate cantabile line is going on underneath it. Now, on a real organ, the right hand would be played on its own keyboard with its own set of pipes, so we would be unable to hear the separation of colors between the flowing brook and the distant islands. But we can do just that on the podcast. So I'm going to separate both aspects of the right hand into your two speakers. Okay, so we'll have the flowing brook in your left speaker, this stuff. And the chorale melody will appear in your right speaker. So the right hand alone and its mini chorale prelude. Okay, I find that's pretty beautiful, in fact. So that is all going to be played by the right hand. And the canon that we heard previously between the pedals and the left hand will be the other lines of music. So we've set the scene for the entirety of this variation. Your feet on the pedals, walking down, leading the canon, your left hand on one keyboard of its own, following what your feet are doing, imitating the exact shape, a seventh apart, and the right hand still on another keyboard, providing the quickest flowing music and also the slowest flowing music, the melody. So I'm going to play it here in MIDI and followed with the Helmut Walcha recording, but we can already see what Bach is doing, just like he did in the Art of Fugue, just like he did in the 14 additional canons on the Goldberg ground. It begins so simply, and then it just becomes more and more complicated. He begins to squeeze more and more music out of this Christmas melody. So here is the canon at the 7th, played in MIDI, followed by promo, followed by Helmut Walcha. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the WTF Bach podcast. We couldn't make this podcast without the support of listeners like you. The best way to help this podcast along is to become a paid subscriber on Evan's Substack. You can also make a one-time donation on Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. All relevant links are found in this episode's description. Give us a shout at Bach@WTFBach.com. It makes our days to hear from you. Thank you for listening.